Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Hello and welcome back to the Market Musings podcast, where today we're going to be talking about an online editing service called Blackbird, and the CEO, Ian McDonough, joins us. Ian, thank you very much for your time. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Mark. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, it's good to be talking to you. Slightly different sector for the Market Musings podcast, but certainly a sector that I have been working in for a long time. So I'm quite keen to learn what the company is doing and how it all works. And of course, my co-host Kenny joining us.
Hi Ian, it's great to have you on. For once in Scotland, it's nice and sunny. So it's I think it's probably the first day of 2022. It's been sunny here, but where is it you're phoning from yourself, Ian? Is it London?
I'm very jealous because I'm looking out at a very dark and murky Chiswick skyline at the moment. It's little grey here in West London.
And Mark's in Holland. What's the weather like there, Mark?
It is grey, overcast at the minute.
All right.
Yeah.
For once, Scotland is blessed. But no, it's great to have you on the podcasting. And what we do with these podcasts is we believe that the company can have the best projects in the world, but if you don't have the right people, to manage these projects, then it just doesn't work. So what we like to do is get the CEOs on, directors, and just tell us a bit about the person behind the company, a bit about your life story, your business career, life journey, successes, failures. It's really an opportunity for you to sort of sell yourself and almost give us a potted history of Ian McDonough. If that's something you can maybe talk to us about for 10, 15 minutes, I'm sure looking at your bio, there's plenty of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I'd love to give you a positive history. 10 or 15 minutes. You can get a certain flavour there, I think, within that time period at least. So I'm a Liverpool boy. I was born in the northwest of England. I am mum and dad, both working parents. So my dad was he sadly passed away in 2019, but my dad was an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and started from a particularly kind of impoverished background, and built himself into a very successful self-made man. Had businesses from construction, from road surfacing to engineering to hotels and pubs and restaurants, etc. So he was quite well known. He still is very well known in that area, and he inspired me an awful lot in terms of doing my own thing, in terms of building businesses from scratch. And I still to this day find him a very inspiring person to think back and think about how he would handle particular situations and problems and successes. So he's very important in my life. My mum was a nurse and had a great work ethic as well. We're still very, very close. My schooling was on the Wirral, so we moved from Liverpool to the Wirral, and I met there a person who's also very important to me still to this day. When I was 7 years old, I met my current, I would say my best friend in the world, and also my chief marketing officer at Blackbird, Adrian Lambert, and we went to Birkenhead School on the Wirral. I was probably not the best student at Birkenhead. I didn't have a brilliant relationship with authority, and I guess I always wanted to be kind of in charge at that stage. Probably a family trait. Then I went to university, studied psychology after school at Exeter University, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was the most interesting course I think that I could have gone to do, and still to this day, actually, I think back to many of the theories and experiments and the conclusions that were built around human behaviour that stand me in fairly good stead. Always refer back, and it was always good at the time actually, because everyone always wanted to know what the psychology class was covering, and not so much the kind of mech eng or the further maths classes were covering, but the psychology class was always a good topic of the student union debate. And following uni, I wasn't too sure what to do after school, so I did go straight into work with my dad, actually, and I worked there for a few years. It was a construction company in northwest England. It's hard graft, I have to say, very tough. It gave me a lot of life lessons. It also gave me a kind of inspiration to not want to work in construction. I have to say, not to be negative about that, but it was a kind of, well, this is how it could be. But what do you want out of your life? Where do you want to go with your life? And it wasn't just about being under my dad. As I said, I didn't have a great relationship with authority, but it was also about really want to do my own thing and plan my own path. And so that was a brilliant lessons, I have to say, and people that I worked with. But it was not quite the path for me. Mm-hmm. So I did an MBA. I went and did an MBA at Imperial College in '97, I think it was, which was a real eye opener for me. Kind of gave me a real international perspective for the first time. A lot of the students there were from Asia, and global students, but a lot of the contingent of the fellow students were from Asia, and it kind of made me think about the possibilities of working overseas and not working in a builder's yard in St Helens. So I kind of went, had a difficult conversation, actually, probably one of the most tricky conversations I've had in my life with my dad at that stage, and said, I'm not going to come into the family business. I'm going to do my own thing. And it wasn't taken particularly well at the time. Led to a fairly frosty few years between my dad and I, about the feeling that he'd always had in his mind that I would come and follow in his footsteps and take over the reins. And I made a very conscious decision that I wasn't going to do that. So it's a difficult time, and I left Imperial and immediately got a position based in, this is kind of the most glamorous job I think I could have imagined for myself. Based in Madrid, I was working for a commercial press agency, but based in Madrid, who would send teams of commercial journalists around the world to cover stories and do in-depth sector reports on various countries, on various industries in various parts of the world. So I was sent off to Warsaw to do a sector report there, followed up by a sector report in Papua New Guinea. I was sent from there to do one in Bucharest in Romania. And from there I went to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And I was living the best life. I really was. I was very well paid. I was living in very nice accommodation, interviewing presidents and prime ministers and captains of industry, and really learning all about how international business and international politics was fitting together. It's always a particularly interesting time in history, so you can't say that was the most interesting time in history, but it really was fascinating. Bill Clinton was in the White House, and there was lots of areas, that emerging economies that were rapidly accelerating in terms of growth. And I was really kind of in amongst it, talking to some of the real key movers and shakers in the world.
And I suppose as well that the different cultures you experience in your travels are important as well, because everybody does business differently across the world, and there's different customs and ways of doing things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was many different ways of doing things. There was generally some universal truths though that came out, that if you were polite, assertive, yet polite and professional, and good values, then I think generally that you were welcomed. I mean, there was, my overseas work took me to then numerous countries. I actually went from there to Indonesia, settled in Indonesia for 5 years, which was a tremendously exciting period of time in my life. And at that point, with that universal kind of truth of being sociable and open to new experiences, and yet very professional, kind of really opened up an entire, well, Indonesia is like the 4th largest country in the world, and really opened up access to the most kind of important and exciting people within that industry, sorry, within that country. And I met my wife there. I met my wife in Indonesia. So my wife is Indonesian. My kids are half Indonesian. We got married. It was a fairly long courtship, I guess, but it was, we got married and came to the UK eventually. But not before. I was in Indonesia 5 years, and I went from there to Singapore, from there to Shanghai. Lived in Shanghai for a year before returning to the UK. And yes, it was. You're very right, Kenny. It's very different. I mean, the Indonesians were incredibly welcoming to me and took me as one of their own in many ways. Trickier going into Shanghai. I'll be honest. It was running at the time. Then I kind of had moved away from commercial journalism, was running MTV networks, and that was tricky to go into a market where you were told pretty much first off that that really the main basis of having foreigners in China was so that they could learn from you, and that that's what they'll be doing intently for as long as they needed us, and then we wouldn't be so welcome. So I mean, that's probably a little harsh, but it was a tougher environment to do media in. There's lots of restrictions from censorship, and very heavily restricted in terms of our broadcast platform, etc. So yeah, it was very much a character building period of my life. Say that the Chinese experiment.
Yep, I think that's something, Mark, you would like to do as well, isn't it? You're a bit of a traveller. You would like to do stuff like that.
Yeah, well, travelling's always good, isn't it? Yeah, opens your eyes to different ways of living, different ways of working, different cultures. So I'm lucky enough to have done a fair bit in my previous work. Obviously not done any for the last few years, but I don't think anyone has. But hopefully that begins to change at some point. But yeah, I enjoy that. So where you were working was sort of, you say, broadcasting, journalism.
So I switched codes. So I was doing journalism, commercial journalism, as in print, up until I left.
Okay.
I went into Indonesia actually doing work with the Washington Post. So we worked with major titles. We were working with the Observer, the Sunday Times, the Sunday Telegraph, the Washington Post, US News and World Report. So we were doing like kind of major titles. Went into Indonesia with the Washington Post, and then I saw an opportunity whilst there with one of the companies that I got to know quite well, to move into television. At the time, it was around the .com boom. It was like 99, 2000. Digital media was really exploding, particularly internet. Of course, the whole .com boom and subsequent bust. But around that time, I moved into a local Indonesian company that we ended up by there was a bit of a little roller coaster ride, but we ended up doing a deal with Viacom to broker Indonesia, MTV Indonesia, which became a terrestrial channel. So a bit like ITV here, we had 50 million people that we were broadcasting to on a daily basis across the country, and we started that channel from scratch and built it up. And it was my first kind of, it was very much within a big corporate, of course, but it was very entrepreneurial to go into a market the size of Indonesia and start building out a television network.
And you were really heading that up, were you?
I was on the board, but I was sales director.
Okay.
So there was a CEO, there was a CEO, and I was sales director. That was. But there was. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say. So your travels are over. You met your wife, and you come back to the UK. So where did you go from there, Ian?
After China, I came back to the UK and I worked with Sky and A&E, the joint venture, which was the History Channel in the UK. So very different. I mean, it took me, a while to adjust from 8 years or 9 years away in the Far East to come back to the UK. Took us a little time to settle, but it was fantastic. I mean, that was just another broadening of my world. Worked with the Sky Group while HD was introduced over here, and there was the first parts of digital extensions of television was brought in. So I was there for a couple of years. I was there for about just under 3 years at History Channel. Built a team over there and expanded all the way through Europe as well. So we got the rights from A&E in the US to take the A&E UK channels all the way across Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa. So I became very much an expert in that part of the world there, which was also fabulous. Spent a lot of time in South Africa, particularly Johannesburg and Cape Town, building out our platform. That the BBC came in, and BBC Worldwide, as was called BBC Studios now. BBC Studios came in and headhunted me to go across to them to again be commercial director for the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, Africa, and very quickly the guy that brought me in moved on, and I was heading up the region then. So I was taken up to the general manager, managing director role across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for BBC Worldwide.
Yeah, and what kind of budgets would be working?
The P&L then would have been about 100 million or so. We did a huge deal, actually, the biggest deal we did at the time in BBC Worldwide, which I think a lot of people pour a lot of scorn on BBC. I have to say, I think the Worldwide division was actually incredibly professional, is incredibly professional, and I would say very commercially enterprise minded. It's restricted heavily because of borrowing capacities that the BBC has, and of course by numerous other restrictions the BBC has imposed upon it. But in terms of learning your craft, learning to be a good business person, disciplined, etc., I thought it was a good place to be. So I enjoyed my time there. We did a deal at the time with Mediaset in Italy, and launched a BBC channel, again a terrestrial channel, actually coincidentally across the market, which was not unheard of at the time for people to go and launch terrestrial channels in Western Europe. So it was really, again, brilliant experience and great achievement for my team to do that. And I think the whole experience was brilliant. We were kind of like at the forefront of the Top Gear expansion across the world, which you might recall back a few years ago when Top Gear was the most important television show that was made. I was out with Jeremy Clarkson in across Eastern Europe when he was doing the live shows for Top Gear in various stadiums around Europe. Quite amusingly, we were in the stadium in Warsaw doing the Top Gear live show, and we got the biggest audience that stadium ever had, and that stadium had held the final of the Euros. It had Beyonce, Paul McCartney, and Madonna all play in that stadium, and Jeremy Clarkson managed to pull the biggest audience that stadium had. Yeah. So awesome experience, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was a golden period for Top Gear then, wasn't it? I mean, they were going over and building the bridges in Burma and all sorts. It was just essential viewing, so it was.
I don't want to say it went downhill after I left, but it did. So.
Yeah, as long as it didn't punch you, that's the main thing.
Managed to avoid that. Did manage to avoid that. Yeah.
All right, so BBC for 5 years. Does that take us up to about 2010? Just if my maths is right.
No, maths wise, this takes you to 2014.
All right, okay.
A bit, yeah. So from there, I did a 5-year period at BBC Worldwide, and again, I say it was a golden period for me. I really, really loved that. But the time came after 5 years to think about something new, and Time Warner, as it was called at the time, called Warner Media now, came in from their Turner division and offered me a role similar to what I was doing at BBC, but it was I have to say a very attractive offer to run a bigger entity. So I was running the UK and Northern Europe division of Turner Broadcasting. That had a big network of Cartoon Network was one of the platforms that we use. I was distributing CNN around that region. We had a big advertising sales team in the UK, so we're selling our own advertising. It was actually a very multi-skilled. Again, there's licensing and merchandising opportunities for the whole Cartoon Network portfolio. So, brilliant opportunity to work with Warner's closely, to work with HBO closely, and run that Turner division. So yes, again, a super place to learn. There's an awful lot of professional people in close vicinity to me, and we got a lot of exposure there to how the US business was operating. So whether BBC business was very much the headquarters was in White City and Broadcasting House, when I was at Turner, it was all about being in New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and a whole different exposure there to my way of looking at media, looking at business, and how successful, how big we can make this. Again, it's always, I always say it's an interesting time, but it really was an interesting time for media around that time. It was starting to be the Netflix was really gaining traction. The streamers were just starting to be built up. And one of the most important kind of innovations that I brought into the region, I wouldn't say that I invented the concept by no means, but we brought in the Turner on demand over in the Nordics in conjunction with HBO. So we launched that. So it was it was starting to move television channels into an OTT on demand streaming platform. So yeah, that was super. Mm-hmm. Super experience that's held me in good stead. But also exposure into content creation. So we again had another terrestrial channel, had True TV over in the UK. I had terrestrial channels in Indonesia, terrestrial channel in Italy, and now a terrestrial channel in the UK. So lots of good experience there. And then we started commissioning shows as well, which was super. So it was another very good period. But I think at that time I started to get to the stage where work for Viacom, work for BBC, I've worked for Time Warner now, and I really know this industry exceptionally well. I know the players, I know the way it works, I know what's good about it and where the development areas are. And by the time we got to 2016, I was starting to think, well, what can Ian McDonough do that's a bit different? I'm obviously valued in this industry, and I keep moving to really exciting roles. But what would I like to do? Where do I step back and say, what can I do? And I pull back then to where we started this conversation about my dad's experience about him being, starting businesses, small businesses, or turning businesses around. And I really wanted to go into that area more. So I started talking to a lot of private equity companies about how I would fit, how my experience would fit into a private equity CEO role. I like the idea of backing myself. Yep. I thought I had skills. I thought I had experience that I could apply to a range of businesses. And those conversations were going pretty well, actually, in that area. Just about that time, my dad unfortunately got sick. He was diagnosed with cancer just at the beginning of 2017, which threw things up in the air a little bit, because obviously there was responsibilities that I had to kind of interplay with regards to his businesses. So things were just all a bit, I guess, a little bit confusing for a while in terms of what I would do. Would I go back and take those over, or would I continue to play on my own path? Dad and I had quite a lot of frank conversations, and we overall decided that running the businesses into a particular place where they could be sold and moved on was the best way. So we did. We have sold the largest of the businesses up there. Another one has been going through an MBO for the last 3 years and wraps up this year. And the hotel business that I referred to earlier It's still a going concern, still ongoing, and we're going through a sales process for that now. So yeah, there was a time in my life where the whole thing almost, kind of came full circle, and I almost went back to doing exactly what I was going to do. Right back in 1990s.
Yeah, I suppose at some point your dad must have said to you, Ian, you actually made the right decision, to go away, and the amount of countries you've visited and roles and cultures and people that you've met, it's been a whole life experience for you.
There was a moment actually where he said that, quite amusing. There was a moment where he said that in Cape Town in I think it was 2012, where I invited them to a Strictly Come Dancing evening, where we had the stars of the show came down to Cape Town to do a showcase, and the both of them ended up dancing with the professional dancers for the evening in Cape Town, and I got that comment then. I think you made a great sort of choice with your career, son. So yeah, it was. I think he saw what I wanted to do. That I wanted to have some wider range of experiences, and was able to share that with him. So that was a really nice moment.
Definitely. All right, Ian, we'll move on to Blackbird, because we're almost up to we're talking 2017, 2018 here. So
yeah,
how did that opportunity come about?
So that was I'd say this was an amazing combination of circumstances. I was approached by a headhunter while I was in this period of deciding about my future, and approached by a headhunter who said, look, we don't think you're exactly right for this role because it's quite technical. But we think you're what this company needs, because it needs to be out in the world, and it needs to be, needs to take this incredibly disruptive, pioneering technology. It needs to be rapidly scaled and taken out into the world. And I was like, well, that would suit my experience. So I met with the management, the directors, particularly Stephen Streeter, who had a massive impact on me, who's the founder and the inventor, and the genius behind what is the Blackbird codec and the surrounding technologies around that. I mean, Blackbird has currently 16 patents, which is being increased as well, of very disruptive technology about how video is handled in the cloud and online, which was something that, of course, from my background, I knew was a big problem, about how video was handled in the cloud and remotely. And video is a very clunky, slow, heavy, expensive, you name it, process to move around. And this was suddenly this very instantaneous, lightweight way of viewing high quality content and then editing frame accurately and publishing from that content. It was I have to say, mind blowing when I first saw it. So explain some of the issues that they were having, that they couldn't get scale, and I said, I think that I really think I can help here. So I think this will be a super way for me to go. It's a public company, as we know. It is. It was at the time 4p stock when I was having these conversations, which was obviously it's dramatically different now, and there was I thought there was just a real opportunity to do something very special. It wasn't a going concern. Well, it was just about a going concern when I joined. There was just enough money to get through the 12 months in the bank, and I say it was valued at around £8 million market cap when I joined. So that was a quite an interesting first 6 months. I managed to take the stock down from 4p to 3.3p, I think at the lowest point. And then we kind of got our act together, and we rebranded the company. We rebranded the software, first of all, to Blackbird. We rebranded the company to Blackbird PLC. I refinanced the business in the first year, and that was where, my dad and I having that very open, kind of enriching conversation over the years kind of paid dividends. He backed us at that point. He put money into Blackbird, and I did myself on the first fundraise that we did in 2018, June 2018.
Yep.
And that was transformational. We made sure that any of the holes that the software had for the video editing industry were filled in. Massive amounts of improvement were made in terms of the software and the commercial approach. We brought on some of the biggest names in media as customers. And for that, I mean, we brought on A&E Networks, obviously my previous companies. We brought on the US State Department. We work with the largest media, financial media company in the world. As we get bigger and bigger with this business, there's less that I can say about the particular customers that we actually have brought on. They're much more tight-lipped. But we are really well respected now at the very highest levels of media and entertainment. And I can't say who it is because I'm not allowed to. But on the 16th of December, we put out a press release saying that we work with the governing body of the world's largest sports now. So we can't say who it is, but you can probably guess. So that's been a really gratifying journey so far, and we're still very much at the beginning of it. To move this company from being an £8 million market cap to being far in excess of that, and the stock trading now 6 times what it was when I joined, but it was actually there's a bit of a pullback at the moment. It was up to 40p not so long ago, and we'll be up and past that again soon, in my opinion. So it's been a fantastic experience.
Yep. I mean, obviously, Mark, he's a media professional, so maybe Mark, you can pick Ian's brains about the technology, because most of it's over my head.
Yeah. Well, what can you tell us about the technology then? What it's cloud editing. Is that the crux of it?
So cloud editing is yes, that is what we have proven the technology to do. Now, doing cloud editing in the way that we do it is very difficult. As in, it's very difficult for others to do it, not so difficult for us to do it. What is at the heart of that technology stack is our unique patented codec and surrounding libraries that allow for cloud video editing to be done in very high quality, frame accurately, with a high degree of professional features on very low bandwidth. So just on this normal laptop that I'm looking at the moment, I could be editing sports, live sports content that was coming out of the US or Australia or anywhere else. So it can work remotely, it can work at long distance on very low powered kit, on very low bandwidth. And that has been, especially over the period of the pandemic, incredibly valuable for companies. So that's at the very crux of it, and we have 16 patents around that technology that enable that to happen. And as just mentioned, we've just raised money. Actually, we did our third fundraise just before Christmas, at double the price that I did the last one, and so we did it at 28p. So we've done one at 5p, one at 14p, and now we've just done one at 28p. Where we've raised money not just to do video editing, but to look at areas where the technology, kind of low-hanging fruit, I call it, where the technology can be applied to other parts of video. So particularly video distribution. So alongside having a very efficient video editing platform, we have a unique way of distributing content through our player, the Blackbird Player. So that is what we just raised money for in December. So about 6 weeks ago, to push into new markets that we think will include the creator economy, will include the enterprise market for video. So by that I mean potentially defense, security, surveillance, possibly telemedicine, etc. So there's other areas where video is being used, and high quality, efficient video can be either distributed or manipulated in the cloud that Blackbird can offer solutions for.
Okay. And is it for live media or not necessarily?
It would be classed as post, but it can sit on a feed that's 5 seconds after live. So if you imagine that that a game is coming in, we just part of an accelerator program just recently with the BBC and BT and Sky and NBC, where Blackbird's sitting on a Liverpool versus Newcastle game 5 seconds after live, and showing how live sports production, this particular proof of concept, live sports production can reduce technical infrastructure by 70%.
Okay.
So it is so by working in the cloud, that is, rather than working
on hardware. So you're taking, for example, a feed, and then through your codecs, your IP, you're able to get that into the cloud in a non-laggy or pretty much instantaneous way, so that it can be edited anywhere in the world.
You've nailed it. So exactly. So we would transcode on the fly. So it can transcode a growing live could be a file-based, a growing file, or it could be a live feed coming in. And as that's transcoded, as it's coming in, anyone in the world on any laptop, on any bandwidth, can effectively edit that professionally and then publish it out. So we've got a contract with the NRL, for instance, in Australia. So if you bear in mind that our cloud is sitting in UK data centers, but the teams in Australia can edit content that the NRL games in Sydney, Perth, or Brisbane, or wherever else, edit that and publish that to Twitter within 15 seconds. So that's how quick it is. So it's a remarkable piece of technology. And as you say about laggy, this software glides. So skimming through like the video, shuttle or jog through the video, or actually the actual publishing itself, or the editing portion of it, it absolutely glides because of the way that Stephen has designed the technology underneath. And nothing. When I first joined, I took the concept to the West Coast. I took it to Google, Apple, Microsoft, and I said, this company's been around a while, but I've just joined it, and this is what we've got. What do you think? And they were all just blown away. It's like, we've never seen this before. This is something completely brand new. It was at that point that I had the confidence to put money in myself, persuade family to put money in, themselves to back it, because it is game-changing technology that over the last 4 years we've been building proof points for, again and again, and now we've got a product that is being used, as I say, at the very highest levels of media.
It is remarkable technology, and you say this has been developed for quite a long time. Yeah,
it takes a long time to develop technology, as I've learned. And so Stephen used to work with a company called IDOS in the 90s. I'm sure you guys might remember that. They were most famous for having Tomb Raider as part of it's a video game company.
Yep.
Tomb Raider was part of their portfolio. But Stephen started the company back in the turn of the millennium, and has been working on this platform and the technology that's underneath it, since then. So I joined in 2018, and obviously seeing, I'm coming in at a later stage and seeing, a lot of the work that's completed. So I'm quite lucky, I have to say, in that respect.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say that there's no way. We still have advancements to make, and the next advancement for us will be public cloud, and making this completely scalable, spin up, spin down in the public cloud, so completely SaaSifying it in the public cloud.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what it takes, isn't it? You can have this awesome sort of concept, or even a developed concept in this case, but it just takes someone else perhaps to come in and with the connections, with the shared vision to put it on the map, really, and take it, which it seems like exactly what you've done. I completely get the concept. So your data centers are obviously must be a key part of this. They must, that's where all the heavy lifting's done.
Actually, no. The heavy lifting is usually done on the client side. So that's really, really interesting point. So because we transcode off the client high res media, that high res content. This is one of the beauties of it, and why we're very sustainable, is that high res is ever moving. So that high res is a football match in Liverpool, or indeed a rugby match in Australia, or wherever. Most of our customers now in the US, so a baseball game in the US, then that is staying there. And what is moving is this very lightweight, this very efficient codec that is moving into our data centers. And so our data centers are not heavy duty. Our data centers are very, very light.
Okay, but the actual sort of transcoding of that must be quite intensive. No?
So that sits on what we call a piece of software called the Blackbird Edge.
Okay.
That sits on the customer's infrastructure. There is a lift obviously in that software, but that's it is done very efficiently. So from there, say it's done very, very quickly, very efficiently, and in the cloud in literally 5 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. I see. And you said then it was more post production. So are we talking obviously live, but 5 seconds after live, but also are you targeting customers who want to be able to edit non-linear editing?
Both, yes. So we have a lot of USPs within live sports production, as I say, not the actual live bit of it, but the immediate post of that. So although you're classed as post, it is within the live sports media workflow, because of the speed, because of the lightweight footprint, and the remote aspect. It is incredibly useful within that area. However, yes, we also do a lot of file-based content. About 50-50 split. So we'll be able to pick up from archive. We'll be able to mix that in with live feeds as well. So that's another highly unusual part of it. Most of our competitors, that the behemoths in the industry, Adobe, Avid, etc., they can't get as close to live as we can, and then be able to edit into that from that archive content.
Okay. And your customers then, are they really your television channels, your cinema houses, or theatre houses, production houses, I should say? But also end users like individuals who might be using, as you say, Premiere Pro.
No, we're a B2B tool, enterprise tool. So our customers are the likes of, well, for instance, so CBS Sports, Univision. We work with BT Sport. We work with Sky News Arabia. We work with mostly broadcasters. However, we also work with rights owners. So we work with the NFL. We work with the NHL, for instance. We work with this governing body of the world's largest sport that I can't say the name of. So we work with also rights holders as well as the actual broadcasters. We also work with doing special events. So we were on a very large summer games last year, and we'll be on a very large winter games next month. Again, I'm not allowed to say the name of it because of sponsorship reasons, but we can work them, with the live sports in a live sports capacity around those big events as well. And for those big games, we're allowing, actually quite interestingly, the games that are happening next month. The teams that are using us are not traveling to the venue, which is it's far away. The teams that are using us are sitting in the Netherlands. And they'll be editing those games from a remote base, very far away, which is a unique aspect of the Blackbird platform.
No, it is. I mean, to have call editors from anywhere in the world to work on a production, or indeed to remove outside broadcasting technology, infrastructure. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is transformational to editing these kind of things. So you've painted the picture very clearly.
One thing that I haven't painted is that where we've taken, as well as working with end customers, which is really brilliant for our profile. We also did our first technology licensing deal last year. So in September last year, we worked with, we call it a global broadcast company. I'm not allowed to say the name of it, to put Blackbird technology into their technology, their video production platform. So the middle of this year, so we're working on that, full pelt at the moment internally. By the middle of this year, that company, we'll be able to say the name in a few months' time, will roll out a powered by Blackbird model across all their production suites across the world. So it's a really exciting adventure for us and scaling point for us, because it means that outside of our core product, there are companies now seeing the value of our core IP that can be put into much larger systems than our own. That makes sense.
Yeah. And one thing that's jumping out at me as well, Ian, obviously the carbon footprint is dramatically reduced.
Yes.
If you've not got these production teams traveling all over the world, and obviously the actual hardware infrastructure to do the processing is not as demanding. I think it's 91% and more of less CO2, I think, from your website.
That's right, Kenny. Yeah, no, it's really compelling data points that we've got there. I mean, this thing, as I'm sure, not teaching anything you don't know here, it's going to get bigger and bigger, the whole sustainability side of things.
Definitely.
Blackbird is the only company that we've come across in the industry that has these firm data points. So we've got really compelling data points saying that we're 91% more carbon efficient. And the reason for that is that, yes, you're right, we don't, make people travel on airplanes. We also, have use any kind of kit, so we can use this laptop. Like I said, we don't have to have specialist heavy duty kit. We use less bandwidth, which is very, very important. But the most important thing, actually, that makes a difference is that we don't move that high res content. So moving high res content is very expensive and needs a lot of power. So if you're moving HD content, or now more and more 4K content, it's often cheaper to send someone on a flight from Los Angeles to New York than try and shift that over the internet. So the fact that we don't have to do that makes us incredibly efficient and incredibly compelling in terms of sustainability. So we put this paper out last year. Video shouldn't cost the earth. It's very close to our company values, and you'll see more on that this year. I think that we'll put more information out for people to understand about sustainability and how Blackbird has those.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you mentioned about the player as well. Did you want to expand a little bit on that side of the business?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's not a business yet. I mean,
No.
the player is used in within the Blackbird platform. The likes of the NFL or indeed, I was going to say another name or two miles over, Cheddar News or BT. They use the player all the time because they and A&E use it all the time. They can access their content immediately. But what we would like to do with the player is to put it as a prototype app by the middle of this year, to show not only that can it work within an M&E, media entertainment, professional capacity, but also it can work within the creator economy or can work in other areas. What is exciting about the player is it can allow for content to be distributed instantaneously in very high quality. It can allow for the person that's sharing that content to know exactly who else has had it, who else it's been shared with, how they're watching it, and then how they've subsequently shared it. So if you imagine a piece of content is shared, 100 times, or even maybe 100,000 times, or possibly 1 million times, the data that comes from our player will allow the initial creator to know exactly the data for every one of those shares and how every one of those viewers has watched it. So if you imagine how valuable that can be, not only in terms of understanding about the quality of your content you've made, but also potentially how you can tweak content or improve content to very higher value and higher audiences.
That's invaluable analytics. Yeah, absolutely, invaluable in that regard. What's the strategy then to grow? I mean, I can see potentially you having a takeover bid at some point by one of the larger players like Adobe. I don't know if that. I mean, you can't speculate on that. But what's your strategy for growth, and where do you see this going? And do you see this sort of going to be the way people will edit, and it will get down to a consumer level?
I mean, when I joined this company at £8 million market cap, I didn't have delusions at that stage that it could be a unicorn. But the more I'm in the company, the more I know that it can be a unicorn. So it's like we have this incredibly enviable client list. We are proven at the very highest levels, and we have these routes to market now. So we have direct, like I've talked about. We work with OEM partners such as EBS and Town News that scale us rapidly. We've now got the Powered by Blackbird model, so the technology itself can be inserted into larger platforms. I'm working much more closely with Amazon. We just recently announced that we've got our foundation technical review done with Amazon. Just is the next level, is the next route to market that I want to nail, which is basically that we have a completely satisfied platform for people to spin up, spin down in the long tail of how this is. So it takes it much more into a mass market product. So that's the way that Blackbird, the video editing platform, will scale. And I think we've always been very clear about the way that we'll do that, and we're on track. The other string to our bow is this player side of things that I think will be really exciting to build prototypes for. And we're doing that not because we want to kind of divert attention, but just because we're sitting on this technology and we know that it's going to be helpful to creators. We want to be the creator champion there, because I think that there's one thing that I would say about the world of the creator economy is it's seen as a very cheap form of content. When actual fact that the creator economy, the YouTubers, the TikTokers of the world are starting to create some really fabulous pieces of content that at this point are not being properly recompensed for. There's a stat out there that 97% of of YouTubers are working for less money than the poverty line. So they're underneath the poverty line if that was their only job. So we think there's ways there that we can start to open up the creator economy. So yeah, no, big plans, very big plans. And how will it scale? Well, we've got a very firm idea about how Blackbird, the platform, the video editing will scale. It's a little more nascent in the player area, but watch this space.
Excellent. Any more questions, Mark? Because I know it's floating your boat, this idea already. I can hear your mind working overtime, because obviously you're a media professional.
No, it's been great. I went on your website. I must admit, I was a bit like, okay, this is interesting. I don't know how this is going to work, but you've completely explained that to me. I completely get the idea. I think, it's going to. It is already obviously transforming the way content is created, and it's fantastic to learn about this. And from an investment point of view, what's your market cap at the minute? It's about 100 million, is it, or just under 100 million?
We just dipped under 100, yeah. So it's, it's, as I say, we've got a little bit of a temporary short-term pullback at the moment, and we will be pushing on from here. As I say, we want to see this go well beyond unicorn. So that's my view. Okay.
So
my colours are nailed very firmly to the mast, because it was worth saying. You know, we as a family have invested at every fundraise. So
the skin in the game is important. Investors like that, so they do. If you put your hard-earned cash in to get your shares rather than just being handed them, then that's a big tick in the box. So it is.
I think hopefully it gives people peace of mind that I have got shareholders' interests at heart, and that I'm going to see the project through. It's it's my very much my my wish, and as I say, I've persuaded friends and family to back me. So it's their wish too. If I wish to keep it as friends and family.
I mean, do you have any sort of forecast you could share, or if perhaps not, then what about sort of your own vision, your own sort of milestone goals that you'd like to see hit, within the next year or two?
Well, we don't put forecasts in the market, and I often get asked about that. At this stage, the revenue line is a little lumpy, and we've just done the largest deal we've done by a factor of 2 when we did this global broadcast deal back in September. We don't put forecasts out just at the moment, but we're thinking about how we can every time give investors a little bit more information. So we do that every time. In terms of personal goals, the main thing for me is we want to build Powered by Blackbird as a brand. We think it can roll into areas that are not just restricted by video editing, as we said earlier. And I think that made no bones about the fact that AWS and the public cloud is very much part of our near and our medium term ambitions, where we're going to go next. Okay. So that's probably about as much as I can say on that at the moment.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your time. It's been fascinating having this podcast.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I hope it wasn't too long and boring. I do hope.
No, not at all. No, very much enjoyed it. Kenny, are you good as well?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm fascinated by it as well, Mark. I'll need to go from an investment point of view. I'll need to go and do a bit of digging maybe over the next couple of days, and you never know. I might buy a few shares.
Good stuff. I think you should, guys. Yeah, I think you should. This is a particularly good buying opportunity, I've noticed.
Yeah, well, it's just a pity the portfolio's getting battered everywhere else. And that's the problem.
Oh, right. Find a way to get the pennies from to take the opportunity.
Yeah, I might have to sell some of my silver. So I've got myself and Mark are avid silver collectors. So you never know, we might need cash on those chips. But no, it's been fantastic having you on, and it'd be great to have you back on. Maybe update us as 2022 progresses, and let us know where it's going. But no, thanks for your time, and I'm sure we'll chat again.
Thank you very much, guys. Really love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Ben and Russell. Tune in next time.